Hey guys, Justin here from Game On. We get requests sometimes from different places. We got a couple Twitter requests, a couple Facebook requests, a couple YouTube requests, and specifically today we got one from our Instagram, and they sent us a direct message asking us, hey, what games do you as a game master wish that you could run if you had the time? And they kind of expanded a little bit, just asking, not necessarily just game system, but just ideas for campaigns and one-shots. And I'm realizing that, as a game master, I have so many, and I'm sure you do too. I had to take a very long list, and I had to condense it down into one that was manageable, so I could explain to you guys the games that I want to run if I had the time. So, thank you for watching, and let's get started. Okay, so there's a couple of big ones that I wish I could run. As for game systems, I'm going to break them up, and we're going to start with D&D. D&D is not my big favorite game as it was at one point, but it is still fun to do, and a lot of people really want to play it. So my big game that I really want to run is, I tested the waters with a short homebrew campaign, about 5 games. I'd probably make this one a lot longer, and I would use the Ghost of Saltmarsh book as kind of a good template. But I want to run a Shadows over Saltmarsh kind of game. So if you've read Shadows over Innsmouth, that's the, I really think, when I think of H.P. Lovecraft and the Cthulhu mythos kind of thing, that's the definitive for me, where it's just you're in this creepy, not so right town, and there's something going on in the background, and the players slowly discover what's going on. There's some sort of cult worshipping some sort of fish god or something like that. And I would have to rewrite some of the background of Saltmarsh, but that's okay. It would definitely probably end at level 5. This kind of adventure needs the players to be low levels, and I think that players, and not too many people play in the low levels of D&D. I'm really a level 1 through 4 kind of guy. I think that's the best kind of D&D, in my opinion, before you get all these superpowers. But that's the big one I want to run. So sort of a Shadows over Innsmouth, but using the Saltmarsh area. So the second kind of longer campaign I'd want to run is the players are tasked to take out some sort of big evil organization. And it would be one of those kinds of games where there's a couple underbosses and all their underlings, and you have to take out the underbosses to finally get information on what the big bad evil organization's actually doing. And it would be one of those you'd have to draw out a whole bunch of webs and cross them to each other and how they're connected, and it would be kind of a big conspiracy kind of game. I would like to run something like that. I don't know how I would do it, so that's just one other larger campaign that would probably go from levels 1 to 12 is probably how I would see that campaign going. Okay, and the last game that I would run for D&D is, the last big idea I have, is a Halloween themed game, and I like to, without giving too much of it away, let's just say I want to call it Phantasmal Force of the Opera. So, you can kind of get an idea of where it would be going, but I don't want to give too much of it away, because somebody who might be watching might end up being able to play in it, so who knows? I don't want to give too much of it away. Okay, so now for my favorite RPG in existence, the Call of Cthulhu RPG. There's so many that I kind of want to run, but there's 3 big ones that I really want to do. And 2 of them are grand in scale, and one of them is just I really want to do. So the big one first is something that I call the Dark Streets of Arkham. It is a game that takes place completely in Arkham. Some of the outlying towns like Dunwich and maybe Ipswich and maybe even Innsmouth a little bit, but mainly in Arkham, there's something cozy, intimate, and quaint about being confined to a city, and it's just surrounding areas, maybe Boston for a couple of things, but it's the kind of game that, like, when I think of, other than the Shadows of Innsmouth that I just talked about, I really like the idea. Like, it really gets me excited when I can think of the PCs running through the foggy streets of Arkham at night as a group of people chase them that they thought were good people, but they turned out to be cultists of somebody, and now they have to kind of figure out what's going on. And you know, this is something that would take 15 sessions, probably 20 sessions maybe. It would be a very grand intrigue game, and the players would really have to be able to realize that this is going to be a heavy roleplay game. You might not even use all the skills that you would think that you would use, just because I like Call of Cthulhu, and I like with that storyteller kind of percentile system, that if you can talk your way and describe what you're doing, rolling the dice sometimes isn't necessary. That's just my opinion, but it would be that kind of game where it's really drawn out. It's really kind of, it might seem slow, but it's very heavy into roleplay and intrigue and trying to figure out what is going on in Arkham. Something secret is going on, and the players need to figure it out. So I think that it would be a really cool game. There's just something about Arkham that really makes me excited. The second one I would want to run that's a kind of a grand campaign would be using more of the modern rules, probably the modern player sheets. And that would be a kind of a neo-noir kind of game. It would still involve staying in a city of some sort, but it would probably be more like what the future would look like from the 80s. So almost a, I don't want to say Sin City, but it's, again, the neo-noir kind of vibe. Not necessarily like robots or anything, or androids, but like, I know Blade Runner is probably something that people are going to want to say, and I like the aesthetic of Blade Runner, but not like necessarily the full-on technology of Blade Runner. And trying to discover a group of grisly murders that the players keep stumbling on, and it looks pretty nasty, and they had to figure out what it is. So it's kind of like an 80s futuristic kind of game. That's just a timeline that I think would be really cool to play in. So that's another one. That one probably would take about 8 to 10 sessions. And then finally is what I call Halloween Express. This is the one I want to run for the Tabletop Dungeoneers for Halloween. Hopefully, if we can get it done, and hopefully we can broadcast it, because this is one I really want to run. Again, it's called the Halloween Express. You can, I don't want to give too much away, but you can probably think in your head what that might mean. But it's definitely exciting, and I really want to run that. Okay, so Traveler is another game that I would really like to run. I don't get to run it as much as I'd like to. It's hard to get player buy-in to play this game. Once people start to play it, they're like, oh my gosh, it's so good. But it's hard to get players to play it. So what I really want to run for this is a grand military campaign, but instead of the players being in the standard military, they're basically private military. The idea of large private militaries being contracted by the Third Imperium intrigues me. I know that there's other... this is definitely not an original thought, but I would like to run something like that involves, you know, planetary invasions and doing all these cool side specialty missions, because you're private military and you don't have to listen to the generals, you just have to listen to whoever, I guess, is paying you. So I like that, and I'd like to run one of those games. And lastly, for Traveler, I don't have the core rulebook with me, but the rulebook I would use Chthonian Stars for this one. And if you don't know Chthonian Stars, just really quickly, think it's Traveler, but it's based only in the solar system. It's kind of like The Expanse, before The Expanse. The Expanse role-playing game. I don't know if it came out before the books or not, but before the Expanse role-playing game came out. And it's a really cool idea. Basically, I want it to be a super hard sci-fi, only in the solar system kind of game. And it starts out with the players doing standard solar system things that they might be doing, like they might be miners, or they might be merchants, or they might even be pirates. And then suddenly an entity from another like galaxy, or maybe even another dimension, kind of bleeps into the system, and no one knows what it is. And it turns out to be like some sort of creeping death that comes and kills anybody that it comes around. And Chthonian Stars is perfect for that. Again, it's Traveler, but it's also the Cthulhu kind of mythos in Traveler. So it's the one game that I never get to run, but I really want to. So thank you guys for watching. Let us know in the comments if you have any games ideas that you wish that you could run, that you just don't have the time for. Or do any of these ideas that I have sound cool? Do any of them sound terrible? Do any of them sound like they could be done in another system? Let us know in the comments. And always give us suggestions if you want to see, or hear our thoughts on other things. So, I hope you guys have a great day, and remember to game on.